Bonji, as he's affectionately known, had never sat on a horse before enrolling at the South African Jockey Academy in the mid-1980s. Who was to know then that this young lad, who could barely speak a word of English, was to go on and have a significant impact on the sport of horse racing? Here's the much-awaited interview on the couch with Anthony Delpech. Anthony, do you remember your first winner, and who was it?
My first winner was a horse called Thrasher for Colin Lee. Actually, I didn't go in the winner's box, I went in the second box because Mace Roberts thought he beat me. He was riding a horse called Comfortine for David Payne.
But it was a milestone.
Well, it's something I'll never forget. Beating Mace Roberts was the first winner, a short-head, and he was a legend at that time in racing.
It's been a fantastic journey for you from the time you joined the academy as a young French-speaking boy from the Seychelles. Can you briefly describe what your journey as a jockey has been like?
More than anything, I struggled at school when I first came here because of my language, and obviously English was really not very good, and I was looking for a sport for me to do. But I think it was more than trying to get out of school and going to do a sport. It's funny, when I first went to the academy, I didn't really know racing was going to be my life. Okay. I thought, I'm going there, it's a sport. And I don't think they explained it very well in the beginning to saying, like, this is your life if you make it, you know. And make it, he did.
What was it like from the time you got your license and through your career as a jockey?
Well, I was very, very lucky. As an apprentice, I had a boss called Joe Joseph. He was a big influence in my career. In my last 2 years, I was a stable jockey, so I rode everything. So he really gave me the big break. In my last year, I became champion apprentice. And obviously, that's when you finish the academy and you go into the big world. Now you start from scratch again.
Yeah.
So that was the time that I had to make that decision, how hard I worked, and I think although being there first in the morning and last to leave made a difference today.
It certainly did. He won the South African Jockey Championship 3 times, the Durban July 4 times, holds the record for the most number of wins in any one season, won 7 Group 1s aboard one horse, that being Vengeance of Rain, and his achievements go on.
What a moment for Igugu, Anthony Delpech, Sheikh Mohammed bin Khalifa Al Maktoum and Andre and Joyce McDonald.
How have you measured your success in the saddle? Is it necessarily just the number of Grade 1 wins, or have there been other factors for you too?
Well, I think Grade 1 wins is the race that people remember. Owners and trainers always remember the Group 1 races, because those are the races that will get shown a bit more out there. I think the small winners is very important, because if you don't win those small races, you'll never get an opportunity to ride that Group 1 winner.
Describe that feeling going past the post first in a Grade 1 race.
Well, it's a feeling that you can never explain to anybody, and I've had fights with the staff and the steward because I've stood up before the winning post and got fined 2,000 Rand or 5,000 Rand, and I've always said to them, like, you guys don't understand the feeling. I mean, like a soccer player scores a goal and he can show his emotion, but we can't really show our emotion, so we've got to keep it all inside, because otherwise we're going to get in trouble. I think you have to be on the horse past that winning post and winning a Group 1 to really understand what the feeling is.
Igugu, Anthony Delpech for the Mike Durcock stable. She's world class out here.
It's a great achievement. It's just not a one-day achievement. It's a whole build-up to that event. So that's why you really get to appreciate those moments.
Igugu. There's always one thing that's certain: class will prevail.
How do you manage nerves ahead of a race?
Well, I think in the beginning, if you haven't achieved those big moments, you get very, very nervous, and especially if you're going out there with a horse that's fancied favourite and you're racing against the best horses around the world. And so for me, that was really, really nervous. But the more Group 1 winners you ride, the more big races you ride, then the more you relax, and the more you know how to win. You know how to win the big races.
As a jockey, is there a sense of camaraderie amongst all of you, and do you rely and support each other or not?
I think we're all good friends. Yeah, there is camaraderie in the jockey room, but I think I'm more of a serious person, so
Yeah.
I don't really get around that. You know, I was always been a very focused jockey that sits on his own and always studies before we go out. I think everybody else does, but I'm one person that likes to be on my own. It's business. I've been a person that can switch off. So
Okay.
I focus so hard, and I could be walking around on a horse around a parade ring, and my wife or my son would be saying hello, and I wouldn't even see them because I was like switched off. So I could do that to myself, and I always wanted to be that person that just racing was like almost like everything to me, and when I get to races, it was like I'm walking to my office. I had to be at my best at every time I was on that race course until I left the race course.
This focus and mental toughness, is this something that developed over time as you got into your career as a jockey, or is it something that you just had within you?
I think it developed over time, because obviously when you're young, you're not mentally strong enough, and you're still playful, and you go to races, you ride the winners, and you don't really appreciate it as much. When you get older, then you understand what I need to do in life, and to carry on that success, I have to have something that says, when Anthony walks into that office, this is it, I switch off, and this is until I walk out. And I think that takes time, and I think if you really want to be successful, you have to have that attitude of just being professional every time you put your foot on that race course until you walk off that race course. And I think that makes a difference, and that switching off is when I walk around, and once I get onto that horse, this is when I have to be more switched on. Every little sign that the horse will show me is a sign that I will take with me going down to the start. And I mean, there's times that I'll canter a horse down to the start, and I'll say, oh, I'll never get beat, because that horse has just cantered down, and I said, geez, I've never gone down so well on a horse. And I think if you really want that success, you'd have to be, when you get on that horse, this is business. From the word go, you have to have your full concentration from when you put your leg over that horse until you finish the race. The more you learn about the horse, the better you can be as a jockey. Then the more understanding of the horse you have. And I mean, in every little way, to understand that horse, but before you go inside the starting stalls, you understand, and you know his behavior, how he's going to behave, and the way you got to treat him. You know he's a bit hot-headed and such. So the kinder you are to him, then he might react and might be better to you, and he might not do that stupid thing that he does. I think it's all those little things. You see some jockeys have that better hands on horses, and that better ways with horses, and that's because of their reaction, their way they are to horses.
This outstanding athlete is about to be crowned South African champion jockey for the third time. 17 years ago, he set the standard for the most number of winners in a season, a record that still stands today. It's awesome, Anthony Delpech.
The way you present yourself at the races is very important, and your dedication and your professionalism is very important, and those are what the trainers and the owners pick up. And obviously when you go out of races as being a top jockey or a champion jockey, people look up to you.
If you had to describe your career in a few words, what would those words be?
Wow, it's been everything.
Yeah.
Not just for me, but for my family. Racing has been so kind to me and so good to me, and it's given me everything I've got today, and you know, and that's why I'm finding it very, very hard to accept it.
Yeah.
As I didn't go out in the manner that I'd like to have gone out. It is an injury that just cut short of my career, where I think I was at the best of my career. I was riding better than I've ever ridden in my life, and that's what upsets me more than anything else, and that's what's I'm finding hard to accept.
Who are the trainers who have meant a lot to you for whatever reason?
I've got to say, in the beginning of my career, Joe Joseph he put a base. He taught me the right things, and I think it's so important to have that teacher to teach you the right thing, to have that right discipline in the beginning.
Yeah.
And dedication. He taught me so much that I can take it. When I finished my apprenticeship, I took it out, and it really helped me set a base for myself. And he's obviously the first person that, as a trainer, that made a big difference to me. And then obviously David Ferraris. My first real success as a jockey was David Ferraris gave me that break in Johannesburg, and that's when I became champion jockey. And then obviously Mike de Kock. When I finished from Hong Kong and came back here towards the last 10 years of my career, I was his stable jockey, and I've never ridden more Group 1s than I've ridden for him. So he's played a big part in my as a trainer in my future.
Who have been significant influences in your life as a jockey, both on and off the track?
Well, as a jockey, I didn't really have anyone to really guide me. I didn't have a jockey that really was always, but I always had a jockey following, and I always believed if I could follow, Mace was like my idol, and I always thought if I could try and watch him and do some of the things that he would do, I might get somewhere in my career. And I always looked up to top jockeys, always looked up to Felix Kutsi, because he's one of the guys that's most dedicated jockeys, and I try and follow all those little guys to teach me something, and I have learned a lot from them, and half of the things that I'm doing that I have done in my career is because of those big jockeys, and they're watching them and following them in my career.
What's been more important to you, international success or South African success?
I think you've got to look at them so differently. I think what I did is I felt like I achieved a lot in South Africa, and after I won the championship, I wanted to go overseas. So obviously, overseas success is very important, because they really don't recognize us as jockeys outside of South Africa. It's so sad, because jockeys Basil's been champion in Hong Kong so many times. Dougie has been champion in Hong Kong. Michael's been champion in England. So I think if you don't really go out of there, they don't really get to know your name. If you're a champion jockey in South Africa, they don't really recognize you until you go outside of South Africa and prove yourself. Then they get to recognize you a bit more.
Yet South African jockeys are held in high regard when they do go abroad.
Yeah, they are. I think I've ridden everywhere around the world, and I think we will hold our own anywhere around the world. I think we've got one of the best styles of riding, and we're one of those countries that actually are very kind to horses, and with the whip restriction, and I think our riders will hold their own anywhere around the world.
What advice would you have for a young apprentice coming into the game today?
Well, firstly, it would be so nice for them to understand what they're going into, because I never understood it. So it's so important today in this world to just understand what this is going to be your career, this is going to be the rest of your life if you're successful, if you make it as an apprentice. And it is a great sport. I mean, it is a great sport. I would never tell anyone not to do it, because if I had a second chance, I'll do it again. And you've got to be dedicated and hard work from the beginning. In any sport, if you're going to make it, you have to have that behind you. And every day when you get up, and that has got to be number one. It's dedication in the beginning. I was always dedicated, always wanted to be the first one to be at the race course. Even if I was riding late, I was always there in the first race.
You've been involved in South African racing for over 4 decades. And looking back now, what do you think have been the most fundamental changes in the industry?
Well, I think it's been very sad. We've lost so many race courses. I mean, in Durban we've lost the Clarewood race, which was one of the best race courses I think I've run on, and obviously gravel. I mean, that was our premier course, and now we've got half poly, half grass, and we used to race 20 horses on the racetrack. Now we only can race 16, maybe 14 on the grass. So it is really sad, those things that have gone. Obviously it's for changes, they're doing it because of, but I think it's a big loss to gravel not having that premier race course like they used to have. And obviously the races, the amount of people we used to have on the racetrack, and today we don't have anything as many people as we've got on the racetrack. I think obviously because we've got casinos and competitions, and so it's made racing more difficult, I think. But what racing needs to do is to follow, see why the casino is bringing the people back, and to have those people to say, listen, why are the people going to the casino? Because they're treated better, they have the premier lounge, the people get, do we have that at the races? So I think it's a, you know, you have to treat the big punters now, because there's so much competition, and it's taken away all this flair from racing, because racing used to have all the bookmakers in the front before. It was so different, but all those things are sad we've lost in racing today. The only thing I can only relate to is horses. And since I was 15 years old till now, that's all I've known. So I think it'll be very hard for me to go something outside of racing, and obviously I think I can give a lot back into racing, and I'd like to give a lot back what I've learned and what racing has given to me. I'd like to give a little bit back to the game, and obviously something will come along my path and I will enjoy. I'd really like to thank everyone that's been supportive behind me through the good and through the bad. I really appreciate it, and thank you very much for all those great winners that the owners have given me out there. I really appreciate it, and yeah, the game has been special to me, and it will live with me forever.